What is going on, traders? We have a lot to talk about. Tomorrow is Trump's inauguration day. It is also MLK Day, so the market will be closed, but that should not stop you from being prepared for the possibility of all-time highs. Before we start, like, subscribe, comment your thoughts below. Let's get into the video. So right now, we are looking at the NQ for our time frame, and I have to admit that things are looking really, really good for bulls. As you guys can see, we are breaking out or currently breaking out of a falling wedge pattern. That is a bullish pattern. We attempted to break out in the past, but bear stepped in and that caused a false breakout. But now we have a true breakout. And the reason why I say a true breakout is because we are breaking out not only the falling wedge, but breaking above a fair value gap. Anytime you break above or below a fair value gap, that is a sign of either a breakout or a continuation in that direction, depending on the direction. And in this case, the direction is up, right? And so things are looking good. Okay, I will say that much. Now, it's important to note that we are in a much bigger fair value gap, and we go to the daily time frame. Friday, we had a hard time breaking into this daily fair value gap, though. So that is something to keep in mind as well. So if we do see a rejection from here, I do think it's going to be short-lived, and that's if we see a rejection. I do think it's going to be short-lived before we see a move towards 21,865, 21,900, give or take. If you want to count your psych levels, you can say 22,000. Now, if we just so happen to break above 21,900, we'll just say 22,000 psych level. You can look at a move towards 22,100, and then after that, you're looking at as high, at least for the short term, towards 22,300. Now, for the long term, I definitely think NASDAQ can see 23,000. When that happens, can't really say for sure, but it's definitely on the table. We'll talk about that if we ever get close to that target. So, what's important to note here is that bears are very much present at 22,300. So I want you guys to keep that in mind. Between 22,100, 22,300, bears are very much present. So you definitely want to pay attention to the Nasdaq if you plan on trading or investing this week. This is an area you want to pay attention to if we just so happen to hit that area. And if we do hit 22,300, I would definitely be cash. Okay, that's just me. Do what you want with that information, but I would definitely be cash simply because we already liquidated this area. So once we do liquidate this area at this point, I do imagine bears are going to want to step in, and then we see a rejection towards the downside. How far we go, it's really up in the air. We'll have to see what happens if and when we get there. And so that's what I'm looking at for the NQ. We look at the ES. So ES, pretty much the same thing. You are breaking above a 4-hour fair value gap, which is a sign of a continuation, but you are below a current fair value gap. But you are creating higher lows. You got a low here, another higher low here. So things, once again, are looking really good. You really wanted to see that close above 6,000. We got exactly that. I don't know where my levels went, but in regards to levels, you're looking at 6,050, 6,040, give or take, as you guys can see. Very, very tough area. So once we get here, I do imagine it's going to be pretty tough. I mean, the market could melt up for Trump's inauguration. That's very much possible, but just be careful around 6,040, 6,050, give or take. Very, very tough resistance. If we just so happen to break above this, I do think the sky is the limit. You're looking at a move of around 6,070, 6,075. You get above that, you're looking at a move towards 6,100. And then after that, you're pretty much entering this very illiquid zone all the way towards about 6,040, 61,000, 6,140, 6,150, somewhere around here where these guys are. So something to pay attention to when we're talking about the ES. Let's look at Bitcoin real quick. So I told you guys over and over, if Bitcoin gets above 103K, the sky is the limit. And right now, this thing is on a mission. I do imagine it's going to continue to pump. Like I told you guys in the last video in the Discord, we are in Mara calls for February, I believe. So if Bitcoin does continue this way, things are going to look really, really good for Discord members. So really looking forward to see how this plays out. But right now, as long as Bitcoin stays above 103K, I have nothing to worry about. I would say 102, 500 if you really want like a loose stop loss. But as long as Bitcoin stays above 103K, I have nothing to worry about. Things are looking really good. And so my targets right now, which as you guys can see, we are having a hard time breaking above this current level at around 106,100, somewhere around here where these guys are. Feel free to look it up on your charts. But right here, having a hard time breaking past these guys. I think it's going to happen. I don't see a reason why we just, sell off like crazy from here. I mean, I do expect a dip, of course, but what I'm saying is that I do think in the near future we are going to break above these guys, and then we'll start heading towards 108K. Like I've been saying, I've said it over and over. Sometime this year, I do think Bitcoin is going to head towards 130K. When that happens, I can't say for sure, but I do expect that to happen sometime this year. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens sometime at the end of this year, but I mean, at this rate, we can see a move towards 110K. That's about the highest I have for the short term. Can it head higher than that? Absolutely, but right now, kind of being humble, kind of being conservative. Just want to see how things play out because I do imagine after Trump's inauguration, if the market does pump and Bitcoin really pumps, we're going to be very, very overextended. I do imagine. So just be careful there. So that's what I'm looking at for Bitcoin. Again, 103K is really what you have to worry about here. SPY. So SPY is looking really, really good right now. What I will say is that we are breaking above trend. Not trend. We did break above this trend line, but we haven't made a higher low, higher high yet. I said higher low. We haven't made a higher high yet. So we have a lower high here, another lower high here, and so far we are pretty much stagnant with these guys right here. So we want to see a breakout above 600. I tell you guys about 598 all the time. Bulls are really having a hard time staying above that level. We closed at around 597.5. We really want to see a move above here. It is important to note that we are above a fair value gap on the 4 hour time frame, but we are still in a much bigger fair value gap. So we're mitigating this fair value gap. And so your key level here is 602, 603. You want to see a move above 604 if you want to talk about previous highs. From there, you're heading towards these guys right here. There's a lot of turbulence in this area, guys. A lot of turbulence. We're going to need really, really good news. Tomorrow would be the perfect news to break out of this area, but there's a lot of bears in this area. We break above 608.5. We'll just say 609. Your chances are you're heading towards 610, your psych level, and then highest short term I have for the SPY is about 614. Now, in regards to the SPX, and so I rarely go over the SPX, but our Discord alerts SPX calls a lot. So in regards to the SPX, there has been 6,200 whales have entered 6,225 calls. So that's very interesting. They're set for April though, so I don't expect them to play out right away. Now, in the past, I told you guys about whales buying calls on the SPY, and some of you doubted me. Okay, some of you doubted me. So this video right here, remember this video where I was saying I was wrong because the Fed member alerted the next day that there will be no rate cuts? It's looking like this video was right all along. It's looking like it's right all along. And so in this video, I pretty much told you guys that whales are buying 598 calls for January 17th. And what happened to the SPY on January 17th? We headed as high as 599. And so what's important to note here, and why I'm mentioning that again, is that the SPX is getting calls for 6,225. They also had calls for 6,000, and that already played out, but that is something to pay attention to for the SPX. And so going back to this video, I mean, was I really wrong in this video, guys? You let me know. I mean, it's looking like I was right. I was just early, okay? And it was only 10 days ago, so it wasn't too far off, okay? So something to think about, something to pay attention to, but whales are definitely in those calls. I imagine they already cashed out on those 6,000 calls, or maybe they're still holding them, but that was just something I want to point out to you guys. It's in the Discord, but I don't want to go through the Discord and look for it. You just got to trust me, bro. All right. Source, trust me, bro. All right. So that's what I have for the SPY. We go back to the SPY. Actually, let's go back to the SPY. Actually, so in regards to the SPY, as long as it stays above 594, I'm pretty bullish on this thing, or I'm leaning more bullish on this thing. It stays above 594, chances are you're heading above 600. I wouldn't doubt that, especially with the Trump inauguration coming in tomorrow. So something to pay attention to in regards to the SPY. So let's get into some stocks. All right, let's get into some stocks. So Apple. So we talked about Apple in our last video. I think Apple is just setting up for a prime move towards the upside. And if things go the way I think they will for the market, this thing can absolutely blast off. So right now we're on the 4 hour time frame. You're looking at a fallen wedge pattern, and it looks like the lowest Apple can go is about 225 before we possibly see some type of bounce back towards the upside. So I would definitely be looking at calls around this area. There's a lot of support in this area. It's like triple support in this area. So Apple will really need bad news, or maybe Trump's inauguration goes really bad. I don't know, but yeah, Apple definitely want to pay attention to between 229 and 225, and then you'll see possibly a bounce from here. So we go to the daily time frame. This is why I'm really bullish on Apple, at least for the short term. or at least heading into its earnings. So historically, Apple pumps into its earnings. Okay, I want you guys to know that historically, Apple pumps into its earnings. Feel free to check, but yeah. So Apple has earnings January 30th. So I imagine within the next week or two, Apple is going to start pumping back towards the upside and start heading as high as 255, 250. Why that level? Because there's a fair value gap. Not only a fair value gap, but there's a gap here that needs to be mitigated. Again, Apple has a history of always pumping into its earnings. I don't know why. I guess they always anticipate that iPhone sales are going to be great or whatever, but that's always the case, almost always the case with Apple. So definitely don't be surprised if we see a slight pullback towards 225, or we just continue to hold 229 and we start heading back towards the upside, break out of this falling wedge pattern, and start mitigating these fair value gaps towards the upside because there's a lot of gaps to the upside that Apple needs to clear out. So again, earnings is January 30th. I do think Apple is going to start pumping soon, and that will cause the or help cause the market to pump as well. So that's what I'm looking at for Apple. If it breaks below 225, it can get really ugly. I will say that much. You can start heading as low as about 222, 220 range. So something to look out for when we're talking about Apple. Next stock is Nvidia. So Nvidia is looking okay. I mean, I'm not a fan of these guys right here. There's a lot of bears right here. I mean, Nvidia. If any stock can blow these guys out, pause. Yeah, it's Nvidia. It's really Nvidia. And so as long as Nvidia stays above 137, I think that's a really good bullish sign. But what you really want to see with Nvidia is it get above 141. But then it's a very, very tight range in this area. So we go down to the 4-hour time frame. And there's just a lot of turbulence in this area. You really want to see Nvidia get above 144, 145, and then you can really start heading, you could just really start moving towards the 150s pretty fast, pretty easy. Now, what's important to note here, we go to the daily time frame, and there's a massive, and I mean massive, falling wedge pattern. And we've been trading within this pattern for quite some time. And so Nvidia does have earnings coming up February 26th. I'm not anticipating good earnings just yet, but it's pretty far off. But if this starts to play out, or eventually starts to play out, you definitely want to pay attention to this falling wedge or rising wedge pattern prior to Nvidia's earnings. If it just so happens to hit the top of this rising wedge pattern, it can go a little higher. I think Nvidia can head as towards the 160s, maybe 165 range before we see some type of pullback. So definitely pay attention to this pattern before its earnings. If it starts to play out before its earnings, then you can definitely start considering puts. That's just me. I'm not in puts or anything. It's just something to consider. So that's what I'm looking at for Nvidia in regards to upside. If it gives up 137, you're looking at a move back towards 135 cycle level, and then after that 133. And you really, really want to see 133 be held. I'm not a fan. I mean, we go to the 4-hour time frame. I'm not too big of a fan of this falling wedge pattern right here. We broke out. Bears absolutely decimated it. So it's going to be tough for Nvidia. I will say that much. I'm not interested in trading it to the upside. I think there's better opportunities out there, but something to pay attention to if you want to trade Nvidia. So that's what I'm looking at. Next stock is Tesla. I think Tesla is going to start heading towards the 500s. Lowest I'm looking at is about 460 short term. I am looking at about 460, but what you really want to see with Tesla is it stays above 430. If it stays above 430, sky is the limit, guys. You really want to see Tesla get above 430. Once it gets above 430 and actually holds, then you're looking at a move towards about 450. We'll say 440 if we want to be humble, but I definitely think this thing could see a move towards 450. Now, what's important to note here is that you are above multiple fair value gaps. And like I said in the beginning of the video, anytime you break above a fair value gap, that is a sign of potential continuation back to the upside. So fair value gaps are really, really good cheat codes. I really encourage you to use them. They're very, very good cheat codes. They can be a little clunky, I know. That's why I don't put them in every single video. But when I whip them out, they're all over your face, all right? But that's what I'm looking at for Tesla. And so, again, as long as it stays above 430, I think it can make one of these moves, okay? Call me crazy. But Trump's inauguration, Elon and Trump are best friends. I mean, you could be looking at a move all the way towards 500, 510 before you see that pullback, all right? And then you'll pretty much, and the reason why I have this trend here, I mean, you zoom out, you see it here. You bounced off this trend multiple times. We never retested this, okay? We never retested this. So I'm definitely going to be looking at Tesla next week. I imagine it's going to gap up like crazy if things go well for Trump's inauguration. But this is definitely something you want to pay attention to. We never retested this trend, so I do imagine that's where Tesla is trying to head towards. You go to the daily time frame. And as you guys can see, we're trying to mitigate this fair value gap right now. We're right below it. So yeah, Tesla needs an absolute breakthrough here, guys. And then we can start seeing some crazy numbers coming out of this thing. So that's what I'm looking at for Tesla Meta. So Meta, the whole TikTok ban, I'm not buying it. I don't think TikTok is going to get banned or stay banned, if anything. Trump has showed that he's supporting in TikTok. So I think this is just noise right now. For the US, any company in the US to just bypass TikTok and just let it get banned is absolutely crazy. I mean, that's a free bag for them. That's an absolute bag. The amount of money that TikTok make anyone is insane. So for the US to any US company to give that up, I think that would be insane. So I don't have my worries in regards to TikTok. Now, I do think that will have a direct effect with Meta. And so right now, Meta is in this massive rising wedge. And so I do think Meta is going to see a pump thanks to the current TikTok ban. And then once it's done pumping, I wouldn't be surprised. Okay, you hear it here first. I would not be surprised once Meta is done making its move, and it can head all the way back towards the top of this rising wedge. But once it head towards about 670, 680, I believe it has earnings this week as well. Let me actually check. No, it doesn't have it next week. But I wouldn't be surprised, okay? If Meta pumps, right? I would not be surprised either around 640 or 680 you get good news on TikTok. Like TikTok's not banned all of a sudden. All right, you heard it here first. All right, this is my Cthulhu moment. I'm telling you guys now. Watch that craziness happen. It's just going to be magical unicorn news out of nowhere, and suddenly Meta just tanks. But yeah, if Meta continues to pump here, I do think that that's a good sign, or not a good sign. I guess that's a somewhat of a bad sign for his earnings. We'll see. I don't think they're going to miss on earnings. I just think no one's going to be surprised by their earnings, and then you'll see some type of rejection all the way from up here if we head up here. So that's what I'm looking at for Meta. In regards to downside, as long as it stays above 610, you're good. You're golden. And right now, Bears are having a hard time getting below 610. But after 610, you're looking at a move back towards 600. If you get below 600, I think Meta is pretty much done. It's gotten below 600 multiple times. So if it happens again, Bears are definitely going to take that opportunity on Meta. And now we got to talk about the VIX. Oh, and then I got to go over Microsoft after this. All right, I forgot about that. All right, so in regards to the VIX, okay, so me and Discord members, we've noticed a lot of calls are coming in for February on the VIX. Like 20 calls, 22 calls. I think the highest we saw so far was about 28 calls. And these are strikes I'm talking about, by the way. So in case you're new to trading. So yeah, a lot of calls are coming in for the VIX. I believe there's a 22 call for this week that's coming up for Wednesday, which is the 22nd, I believe. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. You obviously see a pump Tuesday, like a massive pump, and then the market like has some type of cool off effect come Wednesday. So you definitely want to pay attention to the VIX. But right now, it looks like the VIX is trying to fill this gap or potentially head towards this gap all the way towards 14.5. So that's what I'm looking at for the VIX right now. But we're leaving a lot of fair value gaps towards the upside. We're leaving more fair value gaps to the upside that need to be mitigated with the VIX. You're looking at one right here at around 18. And again, if you don't know what a fair value gap is, you can Google it, but I do have a fair value gap video. It's not like super detailed, but it pretty much gives you the basics on understanding them. And all they do is point out very illiquid areas with no structure. So there's no structure in this candle right here. So this will be considered a fair value gap. So VIX will eventually clear this out. It's just a matter of when. But right now, VIX was creating higher lows, but it looks like it can't be just pretty much take these guys out and start heading lower towards that gap fill all the way towards 14.5. If we are rallying and let's say we melt up or the market does melt up for whatever reason, we can head as low as about 11.69. I'm not seeing that right now. I'm not counting on that just yet, but it's very much possible and on the table. We'll talk about that if that ever, if there's any confirmation for that. And so Microsoft, and then we'll go over the Trump stock real quick because we did take a little gamble in the Discord on 50 calls for I think January 24th. So yeah, we're in a little gamble call for that DJT stock, but Microsoft. We're also in 470 calls for Microsoft. We got in at like 417, so right now we are pretty much deep in profit. Might close these come Tuesday, depending on how the market looks. I'm not looking to hold Microsoft all the way to the 470s, but yeah. So there is a fair value gap all the way at the 450s for Microsoft. Again, Microsoft just needs a break, man. They have earnings in the next 2 weeks, so I might actually hold these into earnings. We'll see, because I think Microsoft just needs a moment. It definitely needs a moment. It's been beaten down for so long. It just could not catch a break, and so Microsoft has this habit of pretty much consolidating before it breaks out. So we can consider this some type of consolidation. We'll see, but right now Microsoft, it's looking okay. It's looking all right. As long as it stays above 425, I think you're pretty bullish. You want to see it get up 440. After that, you're looking at a move towards 445. And then after that, you're looking at a liquid move all the way towards 450. Highest you could be looking at is the top of this rising wedge, all the way towards 465, 470, give or take. And so that's what I'm looking at for Microsoft. Again, we're in 470 calls. I think it's like for April or March or something like that. But yeah, we're looking really good. We got in at around 417, somewhere around here in this area. So yeah, we're looking really good for those Microsoft calls. DJT. So this is the Trump stock or whatever, Trump ETF, whatever. We jumped into some little lotto calls on this, some 50 calls for this. So hopefully this plays out. Yeah, hopefully it plays out. I didn't plot this or anything. I just wanted to look at it real quick. But yeah, so far things are looking good. It's broken, be above a fair value gap here. So yeah, this is looking really good. Like I said, anytime you break above a fair value gap, that is a good sign of a continuation towards the upside. If we're looking at a projected move here, 55, 56 could be our target come Tuesday, Wednesday. So something to look out for. So if you want access to our plays, you want access to our Discord bots, they're all here, guys. I mean, I put a lot of work in. I put a lot of time and money into this. So for people to ask me for free trials, it's absolutely crazy to me. Here's my thing about free trials, because a lot of you are starting to ask me about free trials or discounts and things like this. And I even made this joke in the Discord. All right. So the Discord is $30. I'm not hiding the price or anything. I don't care to hide the price. It's cheap. And to me, I don't think $30 is breaking the bank. But what I will say is that if you're asking for a free trial, fine. Okay. There's plenty of Discords that have free trials. But my thing is this. You are a trader or an investor, and you're telling me that you're willing. Let's look at some stocks here. Let's look at Apple for example here. You're telling me, guys, that you are willing to risk. Let's say you want to do a trade on Apple, and let's say you want to do two 30 calls for Apple this upcoming week, and let's say those contracts are $300. Okay, you're telling me that you're willing to risk $300 on a trade, or 300 to $1,000 on a trade every single week, on a potential possibility of you losing that 300 to $1,000, if not half of that money, if not 30, 40% of that money. But $30 for Discord is where you draw the line, and you need a free trial. This is why I don't believe in free trials when it comes to Discourse, because it literally makes no sense. The math doesn't make sense. I'm sorry if you're offended by it. It is what it is. I'm gonna live my life. You be mad about it, but that just makes no sense. Logically thinking, you are a trader. You're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars into trades every single year, and you're telling me $30 for a Discord for 1 month, and then you can just leave whenever you want. That's where you draw the line, and you need a free trial or you need a discount. Literally makes no sense. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if that offends you. It just makes no sense. And every time people ask me that, I'm like, there's no way you should be trading if $30 is too much for you to risk. You should not be trading. I'm sorry. You should not be trading. You just shouldn't. Maybe you should invest, sure. But trading, absolutely not. If you cannot afford $30, if you need a free trial for $30 and you're trading hundreds and thousands of dollars a year on stocks, don't trade. All right. Don't trade. Do not join my group. I will be fine. I am happy with our little community that we have. If we get more people, I will be even happier. But for now, I'm happy. Okay. I'm fine. Life is great. I do this full time. I just don't have time for people to waste my time. You're not about to get a free trial for 7 days and just question me to death and then just leave. Like, no, like you're going to pay for my time. Time is money. We're all about our bag in our Discord. That's all we care about. We also care about each other, of course, because we support each other. But other than that, yeah, don't trade if you need a discount for $30. Other than that, that's all I have. That's my little rant. I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of comments for that, but that's my little rant. Until the next video, traders. Discord link is in the description below. You have a good one.